And we dim the lights. Well, let's bring the lights down. Oh, just waiting for the lights to come down. Just waiting for the show to begin. Oh, there we go. I was expecting a lovely fade, and instead it was just lights off. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fusion. Hooray! Thank you for coming, everybody. It's great to see another full house. As per usual, we were freaking out and going, is anybody going to come? Anybody come? And everybody comes. Please keep on coming. That sounded terrible. God, I'm watching too much of The American Office at the moment. That's what she said. And anyway, normally I start off jovially before we start with some sort of humour. And last time, I can't remember what it was. What did I do again? Was it a crypto or something like that? Anyway, whilst I was doing it and doing some long story about trying to be funny, the Discord for internal Fusion organisers was going off, and it was basically like, let's say welcome, was basically going like, Jim is trying to be funny, and he's not funny. And when I eventually finished the joke, Andy basically said, oh, thank God for that. Can we crack on? So I thought, okay, well, thanks, team. That's not great, is it? So I just thought, well, next time I'm just going to have to do it straight because, my team are abusing me. And then Jake Archbold came on from last time, if anyone remembers it, and started telling jokes and stuff, and everyone found it hilarious. And then Mike went, do you know what, Jim? This is being funny. And you're like, oh, come on, man. So anyway, I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to be awkward. So you've just heard that story anyway. The point of this is really, for getting that amount of abuse on Discord, they don't pay me enough for this, to be honest, really. Come on, Mike, don't ruin the gag. It's the only gag that I've got. If anyone wants to know how much I get paid to do this, the answer is there. There we go. Right, so that's the quality that you get. Ha ha ha. I should probably give this up. Let's give a really, really good cheer for these, because these were awesome. Chips in a gyro. Yes, mate. That's what I'm talking about. I'm going to do some housekeeping spiel and some community spiel now. So, obviously, as always, this does not happen without our sponsors. So our headline sponsors are Goldman Sachs. Couple of the Goldman stuff, and where's the Goldman table? There it is over there. All the crew are here. Always welcome what you do. And you bring in all the setup stuff, and actually I did read in the news that you've taken that huge new building that's opposite Alpha Tower. So kind of scaling up your operation. I imagine you're probably, I don't know, going mad for Python developers or something like that, I guess. So yes, thank you for sponsoring, as always. And our second sponsors, Vonage. I have to be nice to Vonage because I work for Vonage. If anyone wants to know about what we do, come and speak to me about how I can help sort of your business and stuff. But the baseline here is we are a cloud communications platform. I have some fancy codes and discounts and things to give if you want to come and speak to me. We do some cool stuff like 2FA integrated workflows and some SMS and WhatsApp and bots and things like that. We are also hiring across the board for everything. And if anyone saw the news, fairly recently, we just got acquired by Ericsson for $6.2 billion, which was a bit mad. Now I have Swedish overlords. So that's us. And the next sponsor is, and this could be you. We are looking for sponsors, as always. Everyone across we'll get onto things like Tech Midlands and things like that, but obviously sponsorship is important because it runs these events, and we're quite ambitious with our speakers and the kind of level, as you've seen from the food and things like that, of what we expect from our event. So we have a new home. Hey! This is our new website. James actually came over to me and said, remember to tell everyone it's open source because we're transparent. And if there is an incident, you can watch it unfolding in real time. I don't know if that's real. Yes, we have a fancy new website. James has done an awesome job of this. Thanks very much. Mike's helped him. There it is. We've not sort of wired up some of the URLs and things like that, but yeah, it's live. We've got kind of events and things like that. Go check it out. And if you want to look at the Fusion group on GitHub to look at the code, then you can. Partnerships, the same partnerships as last time, really, for anyone that hasn't been. Have we got any new people in the house that haven't been before? Only a couple. Okay, cool, welcome. Stuart Language, Cryogenics always sort of helps us out. Code Your Future, Birmingham Design Week, pointing at Stuart. Hack the Midlands, I'll talk about Hack the Midlands in a minute. Mind, we've been supporting Mind and Mike Jeffries and Mind in Birmingham for quite a while now. School of Code writes itself. We'll probably go on then, boot campers. Boot campers? I'll want to give a shout. Anyone in? There we go. Always got the crew in. Thanks to that, a big part of propping up Brum's tech scene now, which is so cool to see. And then we have the kind of big one that is expanding, which is, that's not the right way. That's because if you push up, it goes backwards because, yeah, thanks, Logitech. Right. Tech Midlands, so for anyone that hasn't seen how this has happened, Tech Midlands is an overarching engineering group across the West Midlands. Now encapsulates these groups, so obviously it encapsulates us, is one of them, but also Coffee Ops, Code Bar Birmingham has now joined it. I have seen Ryan, there he is, there's Ryan. Code Bar does training for minority groups, which is really cool. Brum AI has been added to there. We now have a new meetup called Manage Ops specifically for engineering managers down there, which is really, really cool. It's become pretty popular. A lot of people asking for those kind of things. We've got Golang Birmingham, we've got Brum.js, it's also held here. DevOps Days, I don't know if are we doing a regular DevOps kind of meetup? We are, aren't we? Yeah. What's it called? DevOps Birmingham. Thought about the marketing a lot there. And UCL Tech Midlands, so yes, it's getting bigger and bigger with involvement of everyone. Obviously, the most important things about these are the Tech Mids Conference is happening. It's happening on Friday, the 14th of October. It's got an absolutely amazing lineup, and I should tell you at this point that I need to send an apology to one of our speakers who couldn't make it because of illness at the last minute, which was pretty gutting for all of us. And she sends, it was Jen Lambourne, and she sends her apologies. But on the plus side, she's speaking at this conference. So if you actually want to see her speak, you can come to this conference. And, oh no, is it 300 quid? No, it's not 300 quid. It's free. The next thing, so anyone take a photo of that, go to that. It's going to be awesome. It's in Millennium Point. Next one. Hack the Midlands, one of the biggest hackathons in the UK, still overnight, one of the only hackathons, Tom's going to correct me on this, one of the only hackathons that's kind of got safety where you can actually have under 17s or something like that. If you're still doing that, I don't know if Tom's being quiet and at the back. There we go, 14 plus. That's very unique and doesn't really exist anywhere else. Hack the Midlands is another one of our biggest sort of tech events. That is on 29th to the 30th October. And does it cost £300? And should your company pay for it? Again, no, it's free. The things that we're offering in this city now are getting a little bit ludicrous. Other stuff, we have some relaunches. A relaunch of the .NET group, which is really, really cool. It started in Alpha Tower, I think, in Alpha Works, and now it's in the Joint Works. The Joint Works is a thing run by Substract, if anyone knows that agency, I think. And then we have the relaunch of Brum PHP, which is on the 13th of October. So 12th and 13th of October, two brand new groups relaunching. Things in Birmingham are kind of heating up quite a lot. Other stuff, the next Manage Ops is on the 25th of October. That, I think, is in the Joint Works as well. Maybe? Do you know, Luke? Yeah, it is. Okay, that's happening in the Joint Works. And Brum.js, which I would definitely say is a must. That happens in this room as well, and that's on the 27th of October. Dates for your calendar. Right, you have not come to see me, as usual, rabbit on and just show you my terrible sense of humour. So, important things, code of conduct. We do have a code of conduct. Yes, I know this is a generic code of conduct from codeofconduct.com. There is the full version on there. The short version is be excellent to each other. If you go up to someone that isn't a man and say, I think you're in sales, I will come over and I will scream in your ear until you are deaf. I can't actually do that because that's also a violation of the code of conduct. But in general, don't do things like that. If you do feel that there's a violation of the code of conduct, then come up to someone that is wearing a Fusion hoodie. That's me, James, Mike, Hannah, who's not there anymore, or Andy at the back. And the appropriate action will be taken, and therefore, if there is a violation, they will be removed from the venue. So, talks, the things you did come here for. So first up, we have Connell Watkins, who was sitting there and is now moved over there. So this one I'm kind of interested for. So Connell's it's platform engineering and site reliability engineering. That's really difficult to say. And I think the thing I'm interested in most about this is like cross-platform disciplines, because I think that some of us get set in our ways a bit and don't communicate properly. So, and you work for Oakbrook, which is a fintech it's in Nottingham, isn't it? Cool. Right, so please, everybody, give a warm welcome to Connell Watkins.
Hello? Good evening, Birmingham. That's what you meant to say, isn't it? Address the room by the name of the city. Just a clicker. You've already messed up with this clicker. Do I trust it? My slides are not there. There we go. Doesn't work. Yeah, well.
Never trust anybody else's tools.
Can't remember which mic. There's that one. That one does work. So you always put a blank slide. Like the first two slides are exactly the same, so I can see it works. Hey. Cool, yeah, good evening. My name's Connell Watkins. It says right there. I'm here to talk to you about platform team with SRE. I'll be honest, I made the title before the content. Not a lot of SRE in it, but I'll try and squeeze bits in. So this is my first time doing a platform role. I've always been a software engineer. A couple of years ago, Oakbrook's the company I work for, was spinning up a platform team. I got involved, and this is kind of my story. So if you've never worked with a platform team or in a platform team, this might be something you can learn from, hopefully. If you do, this is probably going to be very beginner stuff. So it's all about drawing boxes. It always is. Maybe that's just because I'm a software person. I like standing at a whiteboard, drawing some boxes and some arrows. I always try and make sure there's some boxes in here. There's not a lot of arrows, but I try and squeeze some in. And then check this out. Check out these boxes. Whoa! I will learn the magic move feature in Keynote. There's going to be a lot of that if you like that. So this is, I don't know if the font's big enough, this is roughly what Oakbrook looked like a couple of years ago. We had some stream-aligned teams here. These are your team topologies. So these are like Scrum teams aligned to a work stream. So we had the payments team. They were responsible for integrating with banks. And, oh, a little bit of context, we're a finance company. Yeah, I should have mentioned that one. So payments, obviously. Customer team, they're doing emails and comms to the customers. This is broadly, we had actually more than this, it's template. Decisioning, like algorithms and scary stuff. And then there was this enabling team. I've done it in purple. This was the data enabling team. It's actually a bunch of data engineers. So if you look at animation, check that out. These were what the teams were made of. Data engineers here, mainly software engineers over here. A couple of dedicated QA engineers, not in every team. So a bunch of engineers. We also had this sort of central IT operations function. Now, we are doing DevOps, so this isn't like a operations team deploying and running your code. This was more like whole business function, sorting out your laptops. But within that function, you had these blue guys here, infrastructure engineers, I'm calling them, but sysadmins, cloud architects, whatever. If I list out some tech that they're like TCP, IP, the DNS, SSL certificates, you know the sorts of things, virtual machines, load balancers, all of that. So whilst all this was Whilst all this was going on, we had a legacy platform. Well, at the time, it was the current platform that was making all the money. But we were building a whole new platform over here in Kubernetes and some scary new technologies. Kubernetes, we're using Databricks for the data side of things. And over here, it's all virtual machines. And all of these software engineers and data engineers and the infrastructure engineers are all learning these new tech whilst trying to learn these new domains. So for me, I was one of these little yellow circles here in the payments team, trying to learn a whole new payments domain and all this new technology. And the company recognized that that's a lot of stuff to think about. It's a lot of cognitive load. So this is one of my favorite animations. What we did was we took some of the engineers and made this platform team in the middle, and we put them all in the same team. We got software engineers, data engineers, we got those infrastructure engineers, the TCP, IP stuff, put them all in a team, and we're all working together, across disciplines. Now, these blue guys had never even worked in Scrum or anything like that before. This was strange, but because we came from all areas of the business, we could develop something between us. We could make a nice culture and do this platform that the other teams are going to depend on. I promised there'd be arrows, right? The other teams are going to depend on the platform. They're going to build on top of it. And they're going to build these products, which is another box, another arbitrary box. We didn't all have 2 products each. This just looks nice on a diagram. Some teams had 1 product, some teams had 4. And they're all building on top of what we call the developer experience plane. And we have these architectural planes, but you can kind of see this as an interface. This is kind of like the bit that all of the engineering teams are going to interface with of the platform. But behind that, we've got the infrastructure. And that's the stuff that we're going to try and hide away. And we're going to deal with all these Kubernetes gubbins, all the Databricks stuff. We're going to try and keep that away and make a nice developer experience for all the teams to depend on, and they can build their products. You can kind of see our product as the platform team is this platform. It is this developer experience. In a way, these guys are hiding the back end, and the front end is what their customers are seeing. Here, the developer experience is our front end. That's what our customers, the other teams, are seeing. So this is a triangle. You might have seen this before. Triangles, you know triangles? No, not triangles. You might have seen this specific triangle before. It's one of these, a purpose, a vision, a mission, a strategy. Your company probably has one of these. Our team has one of these. It looks very much like this. In fact, that's exactly why I wanted to do this talk. And what I've just explained to you there was the purpose. That was why we exist. They all answer it's really cohesive. It all comes together. They all answer a nice little W word. So this is the why. Why does the platform team exist? And I've just told you our backstory. So because it's our backstory, that never changes. That's why we're here. They all change more often as it goes down. It's all very nice. But it's all very well having a purpose and getting some engineers together and say you're going to reduce the cognitive load for the other teams. But what does it actually look like? This is our vision. Little sparkles. This is going to answer the next layer down. This is the what. What is that platform actually going to look like? It can put us all together, but what are we going to build? And this changes every several years. It's that classic interview question, isn't it? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Where do you see the platform in 5 years' time? What's it going to look like? So let me take you through that. We want autonomous teams. Those teams that I've just been speaking about, we want them to be autonomous. We want them to be able to do their things, build their products without us getting in the way. We want them to be able to just come up with an idea and go and deploy it as quick as they can. And to do that, we're going to take this little relationship here, these arrows, and put a nice little dotted ring around them. It's an as-a-service relationship. So this is the vision anyway. There are different kinds of relationships, different kinds of communication between teams. You can have full-on collaboration, where 2 teams become one, and it's all very happy. We love collaboration, don't get me wrong. We like learning new things, working with new people, but we recognize it's expensive. And it doesn't scale very well either. If you have 4 teams in this diagram, if that's scaled to 10 teams and you've got to fully collaborate with every team to deliver anything on this platform, you're going to have to linearly scale the platform team. And we recognize that's not a good thing. So an as-a-service relationship, we're going to try and document everything as best as we can. We're going to try and make things self-describing, like our APIs should be intuitive, it should be able to just pick it up. You know, like if you're using one of the cloud platforms, you don't tend to have a relationship with, or not quite a collaborative relationship with somebody at Google or Microsoft or Amazon. It's kind of that. We want to build a platform that somebody can just pick up and use, and that's going to help make them autonomous. So let's throw that out of the way. That animation as well. That was good. There's only an interim animation for that one. There's just a little bit of focus. So 3 products on this developer experience. That's what I want to talk about. So the developer experience here consists of packages. So we're in .NET, but we've also got the data side of things, that's all in Python. So you've got Python wheels on a feed and NuGet packages on a feed. That's part of the developer experience. We've got little packages that encapsulate infrastructure. So if you want to talk to the database, we've got a nice little MongoDB package, event stream package for some Google Pub Sub stuff. CI/CD, you build pipelines, probably what you think of as a platform team. So yeah, the builds, running the tests, getting it deployed, and then some tooling, like your platform might, we've got Datadog for the logging and monitoring. People can go and interface with that. That's all part of the developer experience. And I want these products to be, I'm going to this is what the title's about, to be vertically sliced, as in, hang on, let me swap hands, that one's getting a bit tired. Each of these products, right, we don't have a monorepo, we have individual Git repositories for each product. It makes like a nice little box around the product. We want each product to obviously have its own source code. So within that Git repository, you can imagine an src folder, you've got that source code. That's going to depend on the packages, the CI/CD, and the tooling. We also want the tests in that repository, so the tests related to that source. You're used to seeing this unit test alongside the source code. Again, we've got packages that help easily test the sort of things that we're providing as part of the platform capabilities. So, I don't know, if source code's raising an event, you can easily test that in your tests there. Documentation, we also want within this repository, and we see that as part of the platform as well. So maybe you're writing it in Markdown. Our CI/CD pipelines are going to deploy the documentation to a centralized place. Packages, there's not much packages around documentation, but there is a little Python bit running. And perhaps most controversially, the infrastructure. Now, I know I said the infrastructure was a slice down here, a plane that we're hiding away, but what here I'm meaning, your infrastructure is code that relates specifically to that product. Whether it's a data product over here, you've got a data service, if you want to call it that, that's got its own storage bucket, where you can say put files here and we'll get it into the data platform. We want that product to be able to spin up that infrastructure. Similarly with, I think a great example in the software space is we've got a little document uploader where you can upload your driver's license, proof of identity. We want that repository also to be able to say, I need a storage bucket or blob storage or whatever. We're going to make that infrastructure as code, run in the pipeline, so it's provisioned through that. But also, we can give shared packages, just like we do for the abstractions around the database. We can write abstractions around the storage buckets so that all of the complexity, if you like, but also all of the company-wide standards, even like if we've got naming conventions, we can enforce that at a package level in our own repositories and put them on feeds that other teams, perhaps they're Terraform modules, or if it's Pulumi, they're just NuGet or Python wheels, to be used in the infrastructure. So that's vertically sliced products. And yeah, we want that to be quick. Obviously, that's going to be easier for the teams because we're getting rid of some of that complexity. But we want quality out of the box. We don't want it to just be fast. We want it to be good. And what by that I mean, measures of quality. Observability. If you're going to use our packages to talk to your database, it's all going to have all the right tracing in. Or if you're going to raise an event, it's going to have the right headers on it so we can trace it all the way through the system, out of the box. Security, we're going to make sure that we patch the vulnerabilities. So if there's any packages underlying or any of our packages, we want to keep them up to date. Resiliency, if you're going to handle events, for example, we're going to have them retried if they fail, and there'll be a nice exponential backoff. All taken care of, like the product teams can focus on their domains while we're doing this in the packages. Scalability. Kubernetes pods are going to scale out. We're going to try and handle any threading or concurrency problems within the packages out of the box. Testability. I said we've got testing frameworks. Can you see where I'm going with these now? Yeah, do you recognize these ones? Maintainability, discoverability. Have we got any more? Come on, shout some out. None. Come on. There's a whole Wikipedia page of this. There's like 50 of them on there, all the illities. Well, that bit is a lot better when somebody says, what you just said, illity, but you didn't say anything. So they're all the measures of quality. They're all the NFRs, and that's our vision. That's where we see ourselves in 5 years' time. That's where we want to get to. But that's all very well. The next layer is how we're going to get there. Oh, God, I've spoiled it. Our strategy, which is how we're going to get there. It's all very well saying we want to be there in 5 years, but how are we actually going to do that? And this changes yearly-ish. I say that because we've only had one. It's not changed yet. And embracing risk. We see this as a core part of our strategy. All those illities I just mentioned, they're risks. I know they're non-functional requirements. It's probably controversial. They're not requirements. You can carry that risk as long as we make sure we measure the risk and we report on this in our sprintly or fortnightly reviews, how much risk we are carrying. Let's take one example, like the animation. The next one's impressive, believe me. Observability. If we're taking too much risk over on this side, you might find yourself with unreliable software or systems and vulnerable systems, not just with observability, like any of these risks. If you find yourself taking too much security risk, there's your vulnerability. However, yeah? All right. No, I was expecting a clap. Thank you. On this side, do you want to see it again? Just once more. If you're too risk adverse, that could also lead to missing opportunities or slower innovation. And this is the unpopular thing, I suppose. You don't have to, in your first release, your MVP, make everything perfect. For example, scalability. If you're only releasing to 10 customers for your first release, you probably don't need all the resiliency or the scalability around it. Reliability. You don't need 100% uptime. Think about it. If somebody's using a mobile phone, they might just, if it's down for 10 seconds, they think their network, so they just refresh the page. You don't need 100%. So you can embrace risk and take a little bit of risk. Otherwise, you're going to have slow innovation. You're going to miss some opportunity. And this thinking has led to this prioritization order that we've came up with for our strategy. This is I think everything we do in our platform team fits into one of these 4 categories. I'm going to take you through them now. We've ordered them by priority. The first one, incidents. We all know incidents, right? Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. It's all blown up. The incident manager's on the phone. These are all risks that have materialized, or we can see them like that. So it's a resiliency risk that came true. We took too much risk, something little pop, and now the whole platform's down. Any of these risks. Durability. We lost some data. We need to go and recover from a backup or something. Security risk is kind of an obvious one. We left a vulnerability unpatched, and now we've become victim to a cyber attack. These are incidents, are risks that have materialized. I've learned to see them like that. You can measure these, and we've started finding this is where the SRE bits come in. If I had more time, I'd have a whole section on SLOs here, service level objectives, where we can define 99.99% uptime for a thing. You can do this with all of this. And that tells you when there is an incident. You've breached your SLO. You've run out of error budget. But when nothing's on fire, we then have toil. We have a look. We want to obviously keep fires to a minimum. We don't want things to be on fire, but there will be fires. We're all on the on-call rota because we need to understand what sort of risks are materializing so we know what risks are good to take. Toil is manual, repetitive work. This is the sort of stuff like renewing the SSL certificates. You have to do that every year. Tickets that you get to increase some disk space on some machine or increase some kind of quota, or there's a bunch more examples that I've got written on here that I've forgot. Doing updates, you need to make sure the database clients, the drivers are all updated, you need to roll those out. It's manual, repetitive stuff that scales linearly. The more and more teams we've got, the more and more services and products that we've got, the more and more of this stuff we're going to have to keep churning through ourselves. It's boring. Don't tell anybody, don't tell my boss I said that. But it is kind of boring stuff. You might get a little satisfaction from it. It's not mentally taxing, but sometimes it's nice if you're stuck on something to tick a little box and say, yeah, I did that today. But perhaps most importantly, it's automatable stuff. We're human beings that are manually doing this stuff. The example I gave there on SSL certificates, we know there are ways to automate that with Let's Encrypt and all that good stuff. So that leads us nicely onto the next priority, which is automation, our little robot friend, which is also a risk. It's a productivity risk that has been materialized. We put an arbitrary number of 50%, and we don't actually measure this to the hour or anything. We do a sort of gut feel on a little pie chart in our reviews where we say how much time have we spent on toil this month, or sorry, not this month, this sprint cycle, 2 weeks, whatever. And we say if it's more than 50%, we need to stop and we need to automate some stuff because it's a productivity risk. The more and more things we add to the platform that take up our manual time, the less time we've got for doing the capabilities, the thing that I've spent the rest of the stuff talking about. This is the packages that are going to wrap up the infrastructure, you might want to make maybe a new technology, maybe you want a Redis cache or something you want to package around, or CI/CD, we want to improve the pipelines, maybe get them faster, maybe we want to put some canary rollouts in, something like that. Only when we've done the other three things do we have time for this. The tooling, we made this really nice tool that like automatically updates services and raises a PR, like, pretty cool. But we only have time to do that, we've done all the other things. And that's the developer experience. We have time for the developer experience playing after doing those other three things. And that is our strategy. And I know I'm running out of time, and I feel like I've also gone a little bit over time. I haven't got time to talk about the other two things, but 4 minutes over. 4 minutes left. Oh, well, now I'm on the spot because I didn't do any more slides. The objectives would be the next layer down. This is like our, let's do a little bit about, we've got SLOs, they're an objective. We treat them as a priority if we've ever run out of error budget. We also have OKRs, probably doing these. They're another form of objective, which we are trying to align with the business capabilities. So if another team needs some capability that's not there, we can try and make our OKRs align with that. And that's like the blue bit, the capabilities. So that's like the when. We review them quarterly. They're quarterly OKRs. We try and align them. The other teams have OKRs, and we try and align with the business culture around that. But we know we've got this SLOs thing, which seems a bit different. And below that, we have our board. That's our daily stuff. That's who's doing what, and it's just a Kanban board. Hadn't prepared anything on this. So that's all I've got. I'm happy to take questions on all of that. I've been Connell Watkins. Thank you very much.
Sorry, with the podium mic. Thank you very much. Well, it just means you've got more time for Q&A as people grill you on all of those concepts. Have we got any hands up? One over there. I also need to have the chat rooms online as well. Dun, 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 dun. That's my job, mate.
Hello, how you doing? You all right? I wanted to ask about the, because you asked in terms of providing that delivery experience for devs. Where does DevOps come into play with that? How does that come into play?
Where does DevOps come into that developer experience play with the product? Can you hear me?
Can you speak just into the mic a little bit more? There we go. Is it on?
Use this one. Oh, is that working?
Let's get the podium mic on.
Hello. Oh yeah, that's better.
There we go.
How does DevOps come into the developer experience playing, that kind of thing? Well, the teams are still doing DevOps. That's kind of, as in they still build and run their own stuff. We're trying not to make ourselves a operations team where we're going to run the stuff. We don't deploy anything. What we do is make capabilities that make them doing DevOps quicker, make it easier for them to do it. So when I say we're building out the CI/CD pipeline, the stream-aligned teams and the enabling teams will still go in and press deploy, and they'd still be responsible for the deploys. It's just we're making the pipeline allow them to do that. So it's not like a split between dev and ops. It's definitely still DevOps teams, and you kind of get this platform team, DevOps engineer. I don't really like DevOps team. It sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, to be honest. Like, it's not operations. It's something that enables and accelerates the other teams who are doing DevOps. You could say DevOps, sorry, I'll keep going on. You could say DevOps pipelines is a term that gets thrown around. So you see, I kept on calling them CI/CD pipelines here. But yeah, DevOps pipelines, and I know you've got Azure DevOps as a product, and they've named that product DevOps, but yeah, that's pipelines, continuous integration, continuous delivery.
Cool. Hands up, anyone? Over here. Do my customary do. If you look at the official Fusion Discord, apparently I'm very unfunny according to Stuart, so now I'm trying to be funny.
Hey, so my question was, I think there was an order in which you kind of showed what incidents we handle first. Like I think it was incidents first, then toil, then automation, and then capabilities. But
correct.
I think because of manual effort, we have to automate the toil stuff. But at the same time, without capabilities, product teams can't really progress either, right? So how would you really decide that capabilities is less important than toil or automation?
It's due to that risk, embracing risk that I'm talking about. So the reason incidents is top because usually you're losing money during the course of an incident. If something's down, that means we can't get new customers in, we're losing money. We put that as SLOs, so that's our reliability targets. We sometimes find that the toil is also towards an SLO. So you might find we've done like a root cause analysis on something, and then maybe we need to upgrade something, and we might class that as toil. So we might say like, we've got to do this toil to upgrade it, but it's for an incident. There are some blurry lines there, I suppose. The OKRs and the sort of aligning with the business capabilities usually comes with that last bit, the capabilities, but again, sometimes we've had things that we've classified as toil. We do the same order when we do our review, and we do it in that order. What's caught fire today? What toil have we worked with? And sometimes, yeah, we have said, what toil have we done? And it's actually been for a capability. So it's not perfect, but I suppose it comes down to when we've got 1,000 things going on and we need some kind of priority, what do we work on? We prioritize keeping the platform alive, which is kind of incidents and a bit of toil. So incidents, sure, keep it alive. If it's dead, you've got to revive it. But keeping it alive also means if it's still alive, to stop it from falling over in future, which we consider toil.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Cool, thank you very much. And one over here. God, yeah, I sound like I'm getting old, don't I?
You have a project's infrastructure stuff stored in that own project's repository.
Yes.
A lot of
Well,
companies,
that's the vision anyway.
a lot of companies don't like that because development teams should have to ask for permission for a new S3 bucket rather than choosing it themselves. How are you getting around that?
Correct. This goes down to the autonomy. So we don't want to be, so we are currently, so that was in the vision section where we see ourselves in 5 years' time, 2 years' time, however. Currently, right now, we find a lot of the toil is doing stuff like that. They want, I need a new bit of infrastructure. Very specifically, we have a centralized, so not vertically sliced, a horizontal slice that manages which services are subscribing to which events. And then because we've got a whole repositories are owned by a team and you need to have a default approver, our team, the platform team, are the default approver on that bit that's when anybody wants to subscribe to anything. And that's setting up infrastructure. In Google PubSub, it is a subscriber. So we want to be able to not say you could set up any infrastructure you like, just using Pulumi or Terraform or whatever it is. We want to be able to say, here's a bunch of capabilities that are going to allow you to spin up your own infrastructure. So you can go and make that new topic, or you can go and make that subscription or that storage bucket. But it's not going to be, or shouldn't be, the native like Terraform module, Pulumi, class, whatever it is. It would be something that we've derived from. So things like conventions or IAM roles, stuff like that, like who's allowed to talk to what, we can abstract that away. Because I'm a software engineer, I love abstraction. I can go, this is the same sort of thing. I can put that in a base class, and other people can derive from that. Or I can use some kind of composition where this is the default. Yeah, and we try and make it so that they can roll their own PRs out, but we only give them the stuff that, in a way, we're only giving them the stuff that we're allowing them to do. Yeah. But like I say, we're not actually there yet. That's part of the vision. We're currently working on using Pulumi to allow exactly that. I think something really cool is like the C# stuff, the applications can therefore share constants with the infrastructure if it's all in the same repository. Whereas sometimes you have like a magic string where you know like my service needs to subscribe to this topic. And that topic is actually defined in another repository somewhere else, and it's a Terraform string. Whereas this way round, you can make that one constant and have that referenced by both the infrastructure provisioning code and the application code. And the same in the data world, it's all Python. You can do the same thing with Pulumi.
Cool, we have one from online. How important is observability for creating a real-time feedback process, and which is more that's going to be important, and which is more important, logging or tracing?
I'm going to say tracing, but obviously they're both very important. That would be stupid for me not to say. We find, so our logging, we have like an aspect-oriented programming framework Actually, before the platform team, I was building in another team, which kind of does some generic logs, which is basically what the traces are giving us anyway. So the fact that an endpoint got hit and its elapsed duration was this long is, yes, in that log. I don't know why I'm looking at you answering this question. I should be looking at the camera, really, shouldn't I? Person online. Yeah, so it's the same sort of information. You can get a lot of that generic information just from the traces anyway, for free. And in our thing, we also get metrics from the traces as well, which is pretty cool. Rather than, we can make custom metrics, obviously, but like if we want to know just how many things hit this endpoint, we have a nice metric for that, just from the tracing. Logging, I think, a lot of people would argue, is more important when you have like a specific, usually like a linear case where you want to know it got to that point. That's pretty useful at that point. So obviously both, but if I had to gamble on one, I'd say tracing. But what do I know?
Okay, thank you very much, Connell, Watkins. Big hand of applause, everybody.
Thank you.
Right, and next up we have Sani Youssef, who maybe he's run. He's just run for the hills. Where's our next speaker? Here we go. We thought we had it covered with the speaker sort of section at the front, and you're like bit rebellious at the back. He's very cool. He's from London.
No, I've got.
Shall I leave it?
Have you got a lapel?
Is that okay?
Have you got a lapel mic? Or are you...
Yeah, lapel mic. Yes.
Let's just make sure you're all done.
Good.
It's all going to work smoothly.
No, it never does. Voila! I command you to show.
HDMI cable in and out. This is almost the same model as my MacBook, so it really shouldn't be complaining.
There we go.
I reckon, you know when the screen flickers, you're like. There we go. Sorry, I realised I should have been entertaining you all whilst we were waiting for the magic to happen. Because it's there. It likes it. It's happy there.
Hello.
Okay, cool. So the next up we have Sunny. These two next speakers are actually from my sort of niche of the world in tech, which is in developer relations. So it's quite cool to have two DevRel people here because I'm kind of an excited fanboy. So doing DevRel, you're the head of DevRel. It's like a sort of a play on words. Is it Flexi? It's mobile keyboard stuff, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So mobile kind of mobile DevRel stuff, right?
You can say that.
You can tell me if I'm being terribly wrong. It's all right.
It's okay.
Yeah. So and also the founder of what's the name of your company? Hellbrid.
Go for it.
Hellbrid.
I'll take that.
That sounds like I got that hopelessly wrong. Yes, protector of the realm. These are kind of services. We mentioned the School of Code earlier, actually. That when you get like pre-baked in services like OAuth and things like that. It sometimes starts to blow my mind how like CPaaS stuff. How much you can do. So this is kind of like related from looking at it on like security stuff out the box and how to wire it together. So I'm quite excited for this. So please, everybody give a round of applause to Sani Youssef.
Everybody can hear me, right? I'm pretty loud, so it shouldn't matter. All right, thank you very much. So the title of the talk today is Protector of the Realm. I see a lot of confused faces, so don't worry, we'll settle this confusion. So I like to do this little narcissistic thing that I do in every one of my talks, just tell you who I am, basically. I'm just me, Sani, some regular Nigerian fella. I founded Hybrid, and I'm building something called Beltstrap. If you're into martial arts, please, make sure before we leave, let's have a chat. And I recently became a Microsoft MVP. I actually run the Mongol London local meetup. They call it Mongol London, but it's like everyone is allowed. I don't know why they do that in the UK. And I have to tell everyone about this. This is just, yes. How many people have not seen Avatar? And when I say Avatar, not that kid, not that little boy, the Avatar, the blue people. The new one? Yeah, yes. The only Avatar. There's no new, it's timeless, it's ageless. Yes, if you have not seen it, okay, I'm nice. I'm a changed man now. So, some of you, this is what you were expecting. You saw Protector of the Realm. Thought I was going to come here and give you, like, what the next Game of Thrones was like. Actually, you're not wrong. You're mostly very wrong. In reality, this is what I think. This is not a Game of Thrones talk. I do think Tyrion is awesome. Yeah, who likes Tyrion here? I think Tyrion Lannister is awesome, you know? Come on, really? Like, she could have done the many-faced god thing, nothing, just a little stab. Like, come the stabbing capital of the world, I'm really not happy. Like, why? And tell Cersei, it was me. Yes. Anyways, let's go on a journey together. Let's go on a journey together. I want you to go on this little journey with me because we're all different people here, developers, managers, and all of that. But I think what ties us all together is there's some form of solution we all want to build. The product manager would piss everybody off. The project manager would piss the product manager off. The developer would slave away for peanuts. And then there comes the QA person to remind you that everything actually doesn't work. And then the user comes. The user. Okay, enough said about the user. It's their money we want. So let's go on a journey. All our apps need to access some form of data, right? All right, you need to access. Gone are the days where we would just like have like Craigslist.com and just do that. Did you know they make up to 1 billion? Craigslist makes up to 1 billion. And it doesn't even have like JavaScript. It's crazy. Have you seen Craigslist? It is the ugliest, ugly website. Like, geez, enough said about that. So typically this would be your requirements, right? You'd want to have data infrastructure of some form, right? You'd want to have like some form of data infrastructure. If you're still in 1929, you'd still have a big mainframe somewhere in your office sitting there. But do we have any serial killers here? Okay, no. So you also have to worry about data storage, right? Where you're going to store this data, what type of what type of database you want to use, this SQL, this GRESS, this DB, that DB, my DB, all of that. You'd also have to figure out data location. And I know this is something people don't really talk about, but anyone working in healthcare here? Healthcare, exactly. Or education. So data location is actually very important with GDPR and all of that. Your data has to physically, what does actually physical data look like? I've never seen that. What does a byte look like? But the data, the personal identifier of data has to live physically in the country. Oh, dang. What's going on here? Oh, there's the one thing I should have done, which is disable. Is it the sleep? Yeah, the thing, right? Yeah, I should have done that. It's okay, I'll just come. Spacebar? No, it's coming back up. Oh. Every few minutes, I'll just come and like jimmy it a little bit. Yeah. Shouldn't have done that. Exactly. Can't be on stage doing that. Come on. Okay, an access API, right? You need to access the data some form, create an API, whatever you're using. I don't want to know if Go is better than Scala or Scala is better than Rust. It's not my business. I actually don't like servers. I really, really don't like working in the backend. Sorry, backend developers. But there's a reason why you guys tend to lose your hair the first. Exactly. And then security, all right? You have to have data security. Who can access what, from where, why, And then if you're like me, I remember one time I worked for this company and they gave free perks. And when I was leaving, I was like, do you want me to pay the £100 a year or do you want me to go into the system and give myself a security for life? They ended up blocking me like 2 years later. But, and then this new fancy thing, DevOps. Everyone says they're doing DevOps. I feel like there's DevOps and there's like people that used to do sysadmin that don't know they're not doing DevOps. Well, let's not tell them. So this would typically be like some form of like requirement that you would do. I need to go gym it now. Some form of data requirement. You have a web app, mobile app, something. This is pretty sane, right? I mean, if you're not thinking about this in your company, then like tell me what your app is so that I stop using it. So we would go. So infrastructure, this is where we want to start, right? We want to start at infrastructure. Everybody wants to do infrastructure, right? Everyone is doing cloud now. And typically, this guy is like the big guy, right? This is the popular, there's Azure, I know, and there's, what's that other one? Yeah, that one that no one uses. Exactly, yeah, that other one. So typically, one second. So typically you'd want to do that, and this is your first experience with AWS. You try to read the documentation. I'm pretty sure that there's people that have gone on AWS.com and seen that and just gave up and went to do music, or something, like we were having a chat with a bunch of people, and I'm like, they're like, oh, they had to pay someone from AWS. I'm like, I think that's the market strategy. Make it so unusable, then you pay them money for them to come and actually help you. Smart. Bezos. Exactly. And this is what your bill will look like at the end of the month, right? Especially if you hire that new intern who didn't know that they actually had to pay for this thing, and then you get this bill, all right? And I think everybody has been there before where you get the bill and you're like, what? Exactly. And in the end, you still have no clue what to choose. You don't know. You don't know if you need 10 servers, 5 servers. What's all that? Terraform, Docker, everything, Kubernetes, all of those stuff. You don't know what you need. You most likely have paid too much. We literally have businesses that make millions of dollars helping you save money from AWS. That tells you all you need to know, right? And you still have an app to build. You haven't even started building your app at this point. You're still figuring out what the app would do. And this is normally when you get to this stage where you're like, some people still give up, but hey, we're on a journey. We're going to make it. So then you think about storage as well, right? Let's say you figure out the infrastructure. You have a lot of money. You pay whatever, how many servers you need, nodes, and all of those things that I don't like working on, and nobody actually does. Then now you have to figure out this. I'm not interested in which one is better than each other, please. Not today. Yes. Oh, SQL is better. Postgres is better. I kind of don't really care, to be honest. I used to be a Firebase guy until, I can't say this because I'm being recorded. And Andrew is my friend, so. But if you've used Firebase, you probably know what I was about to say. If a database tells you you need to denormalize to use it, you should probably think about it. But it's great. And CouchDB, has anybody actually used CouchDB? Here. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I've just helped you point out where the serial killers are in the room. That's all I've done. You have MongoDB, Cassandra, all of that. I've actually only used just a few of them, right? You have to still figure out this, where you want to host it, all of those. And one second, my thingy. So decisions, you have to, it's just so many things to think about, decision fatigue. And I think decision fatigue is actually the worst thing because you're spending so much time arguing with 10,000 people, going on Reddit, while everybody's telling you why you need to actually physically make your own machine and host it in your house, and why that's a good idea, and you can use it to do crypto mining, and they'll convince you. Don't go on Reddit for it. Don't go on Reddit. Don't do it. And you'd be like, yeah. Why am I buying a house? I could build my own house. Don't do it. And then data location, which is interesting because I first found out about data location when I started working in healthcare, where they told us, look, if you're storing a patient's information, that data has to physically exist in the UK. So imagine if you're a data company where now you want to scale across to, like, let's say, Israel or Nigeria, which was our case, and you have to figure out a way. First of all, what is identifiable information? That's where the problem starts. I don't want to know. Everyone is cheating. Everyone is cheating, I'm telling you. And no one is really doing it the right way, but don't tell the GDPR guys. But they themselves don't really know what they're doing, so that's why. Data location matters. One second. And you have these guys, the GDPR police. You're going to call them in your office, and they'll tell you, these GDPR compliance people, whose idea was it to have a cookie show up on a website every time you visit it? It's the worst solution ever, but we have to do it. Personally identifiable data, email, anything that if you get hacked, they can figure out who's who. You have to do all of that. If you work in healthcare, like I said, you're completely screwed. I know, because I'm screwed. So, and then you have to go to, we have to go to data access. And like, at this point, I think this is, so you have this guy. Everyone's worked with this guy, the new project manager or product manager or PM, now they call themselves, right? The guy that likes the Excel sheets. Who likes Excel sheets? No one likes Excel sheets, but this guy does. And within the first week, he's so friendly, or he or she, they're so friendly, right? Oh, hi, we're making sure everyone's good. They're evil. Don't trust them. Who here, when has your product manager called you for a meeting that you felt, oh yeah, I'm just going to go, it's going to be nice? It's always, what is it this time? It's never good news. So there's this guy, comes up with 1,000 new requirements, convinces you that they're good ideas, requires an endpoint for each of them, for whatever reason, all right? And probably wants you to connect to some weird third-party API that probably shows 200 when it's a fail, for whatever reason, or 400 when it's success. We don't know who documented it, but they want you to connect that, And so, one second. And then you have these guys, security and DevOps. At this point, we can stop the journey, right? Like, we get the gist. It's like, very few people make it this far. And the whole idea is, building an entire end-to-end solution is very, very complex. You have to think about so many things. And half the time, you're paying money to this person, that person, that person, that person, that person. You don't even know when credit cards are expiring. It's a nightmare. And I call myself a serverless extremist. I feel like I can use that word. So I've been a serverless guy since like 2011. Like, I don't like spinning up servers. I'm a serverless extremist. Like, I was using Azure in like 2011 when it was still like, it's always buggy, it's Microsoft, so, But yeah, so I don't like spinning up servers or, I want to build an app. I want to connect to a database. I want to do what I need to do. I don't want to worry about whether I need load balancing or all of that. That's not my problem. I want to build an app. And if you notice, as time has gone on, people like Netflix have decided, why do we need a data center? Let's give it to AWS. Even the government is doing the same with like AWS and all of that. Everyone is kind of figuring out, if we all work together, it's much better, right? Why do I need to do my own authentication with Passport.js? I'll go use Okta or Auth0, right? Like, give someone, they'll do it for you cheap and they do it better than you, right? That's kind of it. But sometimes you end up with this, I call it the spaghetti bolognese of an app, or Franken app, I call it, right? It's like, it's just too many moving parts. And so it's not all bad news, and that's where I introduce you to something called MongoDB Atlas. I know I'm calling it Atlas, but you might Google it and the name might change like every 5 seconds. They're not quite sure what they're doing at MongoDB. It's like Stitch one day, it's Realm the other day, it's Atlas. Just call it Atlas. They tried Mongo Cloud Services. Now I think it's Mongo Atlas Services, whatever. Just use Atlas. People know what you're talking about. So what are the features of Atlas? And how many people have heard of Atlas here? Okay, how many people use Atlas? Okay, good, great. The world is gonna be a better place, see? Exactly. So some of the features that Atlas actually has, and They include, infrastructure. You can set up your own infrastructure with Atlas. So like select your own cloud provider. And if you have an existing like bucket or anything, you can also attach that. And I'm going to be showing you that quickly. Your own data location. So not just like I want to use AWS, but I want the AWS data center in like India or in South Africa. You can like go to that level of like detail. And you could even do multi-cloud regions. So I can have a data center in, say, India, but I can run it on AWS, and I can have another one running on that other one. What's the name again? GCP, right? Yeah, running in the data center in the UK and have all the replication, all of that done for me. I'm very lazy, as you can see. I do not want to do that, so this is perfect for me. And yeah, you can scale as you use. You're not going to get like a magical bill with your inheritance, all of that. And some other features as well we can quickly glance through, which I'm going to be showing you. Database as a service using MongoDB. If you have like a SQL instance, I'll also show you how they have a GraphQL integration that works so that you can basically just work with that as well. You can have charts. Very underrated, what's it called? I actually used this during COVID to create a chart. So imagine if you have data on your server and you need to create charts, then somebody would convince you to go use some front-end chart tool that probably never really works, makes the app slow. You could just have the data directly connected to your database, and that chart is live, and you can share it, you can embed it, you could pass it on an email. It's always just going to be live. So helps you. Basically Tableau, but from your database. You can have MongoDB functions, actually. So what most people call Lambda, you can do that right there as well. Hosting as well. You can do hosting, webhook endpoints. There's so many features. These are just some of the few data APIs. So if instead of you creating your own APIs, it's already created for you. You just set the security rules, and you access it via REST. And you can do everything. Security rules and schemas and all of that. Standard MongoDB stuff. And offline sync for the people that actually build great mobile applications, because most people don't. So, want to see something? Okay, good. I'm not burning anybody, by the way, because it would be cool. You think dragons are real? You never know. I don't know, maybe they're real. Maybe dragons wouldn't let me ride them if they were real. But let's see. By the way, I'm trusting you guys now. Whatever notification that just inappropriately pops up, I apologize in advance. Whatever browser history you see, I'm only human. I'm just giving you a heads up. So, yes, I'm just giving you the heads up. Right? So let's start off with, let's go to Atlas itself. So typically you would just sign up to Atlas. It's free. You just quickly sign up. And you'd come here, you would see something like this. So this is my own cluster, but let's say I wanted to, like, I'm starting from scratch, right? You start off by creating a cluster, which is basically, you can come here and say, okay, I want to create, I want to use AWS. I tend to use AWS because it's cheaper. I'm Nigerian. I like saving money. It's just cheaper, so hey, man, it's cheaper. Don't judge me, but it's cheaper, so why not? So you can go like, hey, you don't need to do any of this like integration. It's already done for you. Or I want to use AWS. And now you have access to all the AWS data locations. So you can go, oh, I want to host this in London. Oh, I want to host it in London and here for whatever reason. You can even do, okay, you can go to GCP, because sometimes, let's say, I think if you're looking for South Africa, only Azure has South Africa. There's not a lot of data centers in Africa. So let's say you needed a data center that was in Africa because you're building a mission critical app. You could just go, oh, okay, GCP, Azure allows me to do that, and then you can just put your app on there. And you can go down and whatever you need, like, scale as you like. We've been using this, and we pay $60 every month, and we haven't even scratched the surface of the usage. It's really, really good. I don't know why they're giving it away for free, but I shouldn't say free, please. They'll watch it. Don't increase the price. It's okay. So, and then you can set the version of MongoDB you want to use or whatever, things like that. You give the cluster a name, just the standard stuff. Now they've done this whole free tier and the serverless if you just want to use some of the features. But the whole idea is you just come in here and you'd provision all the things that you need, right? And then I can show you quickly, like, for example, the charts. And this chart is actually live charts. It's something that for my startup that we're working on for the alpha trial. And so it's a martial arts academy management software, so we need to know specific things. So we can tell you that right now, I've just created this, basically a dashboard. We know how many classes have been logged, and how many total students, things like that, gender distribution, live from the data, as the data just keeps growing. And I can quickly show you just the Realm service as well, where you can actually see all the things that are available. So you can see authentication, oh, that's interesting. It's kind of like, can I just make it smaller so everyone can kind of like see? Yeah? Tu regardes? Everybody can see? Exactly. So you can see like so many different things. You can do rules, basically saying this person, this is the person that can access it. They have to be this. They have to be logged in. They have to, I don't know, have a feather in their tail, whatever. Just, you can put it in their schemas. Oh, if the username or the name has to match this particular thing, you do whatever you want to do. Authentication, different types, custom, anonymous, all the providers, but even like things like different types of SDKs. Another thing that people don't know, a lot of people don't know, is the functions. So they're just basically Lambda functions ready to go, and you can use no NPM packages live and direct. Another one that people don't really use is the real-time. There's actually real-time integration there. And you can use HTTP endpoints to respond to your webhooks. So I use Stripe a lot. So those endpoints are just created for you, and you just associate it with the function to do whatever, and then you give anyone, and they can just access that. And you also have a new thing called a data API, which basically converts your entire database to a REST API for you. So anything, when I was using Cypress IO to do testing, that came very, very handy. And values, if you want to store secrets and stuff, hosting, you can link data sources, you can do logs, like you can pretty much do everything, like, and DevOps as well, so like backups, you can easily do those things. So I have like I think an hourly backup that lasts 24 hours, daily backup that lasts a week, a weekly backup that lasts a month, and a monthly backup that lasts 3 months. Like I go all out, and you can always replay that. So this is what I really have time for to show you, and I really encourage you to go around, play with it. It's really free. For the most part, it allows you to do most things. So so we're just gonna go here, and for the people that want to get started, just go to the atlas.com documentation. If you have any questions, just hit me up on any of the platforms. I'm very active on Twitter, but follow at your own risk. So I'm just telling you exactly. Might piss you off every now and then, but yeah, that's pretty much it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sonny. And just a note, we just need to know whether to throw you out for a code of conduct violation because you called 2 of our members psychopaths and murderers. Are we okay? What do you think? Anyway, yeah, thank you very much. Right, questions from the floor. Hands up. Over I go. Can you put your hand up again? Who was it? Right. Right.
How broad is the SDK support for MongoDB Atlas? Because I know that quite a bit of the appeal with tools like Firebase is there's a lot of broad library SDK support, both as built-in IAC and just general popular library support and implementation. Does Atlas have a similar set of SDKs that you can use for?
Yeah, very, very wide SDK support. You have web, Node, iOS, Android. I think they've just worked on a Flutter one. They've got like Python, all of that, because they just kind of like build on top of the existing Mongo stuff and just add their own stuff. So it's very, very and if none of that works for you, REST. Remember, everything there's a REST interface that you can just query from like anywhere if you don't have and you can do everything with REST as well. So yeah, pretty much I would say everything.
Right. Anyone else?
Sorry, just following on from what you're saying with REST, isn't that some sort of security breach if you're exposing your whole database over a REST API?
I'm so sorry, I could not hear you at all, my friend.
Just following on from what you're saying about everything exposed over REST to your entities or what have you, or what's in your database. Doesn't that kind of conflict with security?
So if I got your question correctly, you're saying when you go via REST that there's some sort of security risk?
If you're exposing your entire database schema.
Oh, not necessarily, because the whole idea is you have the rules that you can set. So the rules actually dictate who has access to what. So it doesn't matter who gets your URL. If they don't have the access, they can't access it. So it's sort of like, because you're allowing querying from the front-end client, right? As long as you set your rules, which, by the way, people using MongoDB, please do, right? If you set your rules, you wouldn't have any problem at all. And you're not even at risk of what's the name of that attack? Where everybody wants to, yeah, DDoS, you're not at risk. It takes care of that. So if someone is really trying, you're not gonna fall from that as well, yeah.
Okay, cool. I think we're done for the floor, so please give everybody a hand to Sani Yusuf.
Thank you.
Right, and now for our last speaker, I'll do my filler where I sing, or I'm not going to sing. I can't really sing.
Hope I answered your question.
I could sing. I'm not going to sing. into the podium mic, just for like. Da, 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 da. Oh, well, like lift music whilst we're doing. Actually, can we do that, Mike? Can we get like lift hold music in between speakers? That'd be really sassy, wouldn't it? I can't even. The best thing about this is I can't hear what Mike is shouting to me. He's abusing me, but I can't hear him. It's great. And you're on handheld, aren't you? Cool. Are we? Yes, we're happy with clickers. Everyone's done their toilet break. Classic technology being a nightmare. Okay, so for the final speaker tonight, hush, hush, ladies and gentlemen. Shh. Oh, God, I feel like a teacher. Actually, that's quite topical. Talking of people that used to be teachers, that was actually unplanned. Our final speaker of the night. Actually, our previous speaker was a Microsoft MVP, and now we have another one. It is Salma Alam-Naylor, who's AKA White Panther, which is done in that sort of that hacker kind of like way of doing it. I've followed Salma for a while. You're a Twitch partner, right? Cool. And yeah, I've seen a couple of the streams, and I don't understand how you do lots of coding in front of everybody and deal with it, and also deal with the people that generally watch it, and also yeah, just all of that, and then actually have entertainment as part of it. It's like being a radio host and a developer, and I find it intensely confusing and difficult. But what you don't, you make it seem like a natural. So you are it's developer experience at Netlify, isn't it? But that's not the right job title, but it's something close to it. I'll let Salma actually say what it is. But also, when you started Contentful, and yeah, and yes, from a sort of interesting scene of like being a music teacher, and so quite a colourful background, like a lot of people that sort of tend to do the developer relations space. Here to talk about edge functions and stuff like that on Netlify, which is stuff that intensely confuses me. But now we shall demystify it. Please give a warm welcome to Salma Alam-Naylor.
Thank you. Ooh, the microphone is warm. So funny story, I only really started talking about tech in this kind of format after COVID happened. And normally, before that, I was on a stage either singing or telling jokes. So I used to be a comedian, so I kind of feel like I need to tell you jokes, but I haven't really planned any jokes, so we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm here to talk to you about the edge, and I guess the title of my talk is kind of a joke, but not really. What is the edge? Before that, I'll tell you who I am. There's a little wave. I'm Salma. There's emojis in this. Maybe that's a joke. Maybe I'm trying to be like down with the kids. You may have heard of me if you've seen me on the internet. I'm White Panther, or if you use a screen reader, I'm White P4N3R. And I've left stickers on the table for you. They're kind of like my innovative business card. So you can take them and stick them on things like your face. I help developers build stuff, learn things, and love what they do. And I think that's one of the most important things I want to get in there, that I like to make tech enjoyable and accessible for people and help people do it. And I think this kind of comes from the teaching thing and the performance thing. So that's what I'm about. As James said, I'm a staff developer experience engineer at Netlify. Can I have a quick show of hands, like who's heard of Netlify? Good, lots of you, great, great. Well, if you haven't heard of it, it's a modern web development platform, that's what we like to say, that offers you like a huge range of development tools for like your workflow to help you build, test, ship your products. And I work with developers at all levels to help them use the platform, but also more importantly to help them build really cool stuff and help them build stuff on the web and making it enjoyable. I also code live for your entertainment, as Jim said, on Twitch, twice a week regularly, and other bonus streams and stuff. So I essentially go and learn in public. I try out this weird new stuff that doesn't really work yet, and we all have fun and solve problems together. So I mainly stream front-end development, CSS, JavaScript, love a bit of pure HTML, and I generally just like deploy websites to Netlify when they're not even finished, and everyone seems to like that. So I was just showing Sani one earlier, what the framework.dev, no CSS, but it still works, so it's fine. I also maintain a lot of open source projects as well, to help people learn. I've got a lot of demo stuff out there and a lot of other open source projects that I've tried to change the world with, but it never works. So I'll just change someone's mind instead. So here we are. So we're all living on it, but what exactly is the edge? So as we've heard of today, more and more cloud hosting providers and software as a service platform providers are offering serverless functions, but now they are also coming out on the edge. So today we're going to talk about what is the edge and what are edge functions and why does it matter. So I'm going to show you kind of what happened, how serverless functions came to be and why. Talk a little bit about serverless and the Jamstack. It would be remiss of me not to talk about the Jamstack given that I work for Netlify. Going to talk about the edge and edge functions on Netlify, and I'm going to show you some really cool use cases. And I think one of the biggest things that I'm really, really keen to talk about is that how edge functions enable front-end developers to do the stuff that they never thought they could ever do because they don't like back-end development. And it's really like opened up my world to building like full stack stuff. So first of all, I like to break things down like as into as tiny, most microscopic pieces as possible to then build up a story and kind of show you the whole big picture. So first of all, what is a serverless function? But we actually have to break it down further and actually ask, what is a function? Now, I think you're all developers in here, but a function is a bit of code that does something. That's all it is, and sometimes this terminology can get a little bit overwhelming. Here's a function. It's written in JavaScript. It's called print message, and all it does is prints out somewhere, I am a function. So that's our function. It's a little bit of code. Can be 3 lines. You could probably put that all on 1 line. Doesn't have to be too complicated. So what do we mean by serverless? However, we can't talk about what is serverless unless we talk about servers. So what is a server? Now, a server is a computer that can store and run bits of code. And those bits of code are the functions we talked about just now. So a server can be physical or virtual. So physical servers are hardware existing in time and space, like this is a bit of hardware here. And virtual servers, they are software on a physical machine. We had Connell at the beginning talking about VMs that his platform team provide. That's a physical, it's a virtual thing. And these mimic the functionality of physical servers. So when we say serverless, do we actually mean no servers? Well, no, the English language is silly, isn't it? We don't really mean that. What we mean is when we talk about servers traditionally, we're talking about managed servers, like this. But the cable management is poor, isn't it? So here's your server room. It's a bunch of physical servers, not really taken care of. It's funny, my husband is an infrastructure engineer, and he comes home sometimes with pictures like this, and then the after pictures where he's tidied it all up, and he's very proud. It's his form of art. So back-end code, right, is generally the code that is stored on servers like this. So anything that would read and write to a database, and anything that does all the complex stuff that front-end developers don't care about, you know. And so before the dawn of the cloud and serverless in around 2008, 2010, in order to run any code that required a server, you had to actually store and run that code on your own physical servers or computers and manage and scale them yourself. You know, when we're talking about scaling, we're talking about increasing the things that it can do at once. So say, for example, Christmas time, a shopping site, right? You've got a big sale on Black Friday, and you know that a lot of people are going to be visiting that site at that time. You need to make sure you've got more availability, more servers to handle more people who want to buy more things because capitalism. And if you can't take care of that yourself, if you're these days, you need to get a bigger room, you need to get more servers. It's expensive, it's too expensive. And for some more projects, maybe you could get away with a tiny little server machine on your floor to heat your room during the energy crisis. That was a good joke, wasn't it? And but no, we can't do that. So the cloud, it's terrible when you try and highlight your own jokes. It doesn't work. So the cloud is aiming to solve this for us. So initially, the businesses required all these network servers and bigger rooms and stuff. I'm really sorry, this is a bit weird. I can't see all of my notes, and so I'm kind of making it up because I couldn't move the notes. So you're getting an improvised experience. So this is good. We moved from managed servers to cloud servers, which is basically another company managing your servers for you, and you're just renting them whenever you need the computation power. So it doesn't mean no servers. Serverless means servers as a service, like this, and they're still physical. They're still somewhere, but you don't need to care about them. And this is the most important thing. Usually, cloud servers are in a fixed location still. We saw Sani show you all the different regions you can choose for GCP and AWS and Azure. Serverless stuff are in fixed locations. And keep this in mind. So for example, we've got AWS who provide serverless functions or Lambda. And you can choose which location you can run them from. These are some of the locations you can choose in the US, mainly west or east, right? US West is a popular one that's down a lot, especially when people are streaming on Twitch. No one can stream on Twitch when US West is down, and that happens more and more these days. So first of all, before we move on and talk about moving away from serverless into somewhere else, why is serverless good? We've kind of touched on a few points already. With serverless, there's less stress. You can scale your applications. You can just write the code that you need to write, and you don't need to worry about that. And especially if you're like a hobby developer, or if you're building a startup, you don't have the staff that you can employ, you don't have the money to buy your own physical servers, you can just use serverless and get going really quickly. It's cost effective because there's so many free tiers available on some of the starter plans for, you can get a certain amount of serverless requests per month, for example. And you don't need to worry about scaling, and you can just get going. So let's take a little brief detour towards serverless and Jamstack. It might feel like a detour, but it will all become clear. The circle will be complete very, very soon. So serverless is a complementary technology to Jamstack, meaning that the technologies work really nice together and can help and enhance and enrich your projects. They go hand in hand, as the emoji suggests. Now, again, let's have a little bit of a definition about Jamstack. So if, by the way, hands up, who has heard the term Jamstack? Not many. Oh no, more than I thought. Okay, so quick detour, quick historical lesson. Jamstack is a term that was coined around 2015 around the whole concept of static site generators. And the jam in Jamstack meant JavaScript, APIs, and markup. But it doesn't really mean that anymore. It's more of like an architecture. And as the web continues to evolve and build new tools and release new things, it's kind of had to evolve with it. So Netlify and Jamstack are kind of adjacent things, and there's a lot of community-based stuff that goes around Jamstack. Netlify is the Jamstack enabling platform. But if you want to find more about Jamstack and actually what that kind of architecture and that approach could mean for larger scale businesses, there's some literature on netlify.com about what it means, and we do a lot of studies into headless and composable and that kind of stuff. Anyway, so Jamstack is an approach, an architecture that decouples or separates all of the different building blocks of your apps and your projects. So separate front end, separate APIs, separate databases, use serverless functions with your front end, so you don't need a persistently running server. Now, the key thing that powered Jamstack in the beginning and still does now is the CDN, or the Content Delivery Network. And this is where did that happen? This is where the serverless plus Jamstack is going to kind of lead us right into the edge. So a CDN is a network of servers distributed around the world, working together to serve cached, static, and pre-built content, usually as a result of these static site-generated sites that are serving static files. And these files are served from the closest server location possible from the user's request. Now keep this in mind. And so when traditionally web pages, requests for web pages were processed by a managed server, they'd normally come from a server in a fixed location, probably just in one place in the world. So a user makes a request from a web browser. The server receives the request, runs the business logic, makes that really messy room really hot. And then it bundles and builds the HTML documents and resources all in real time. So it takes maybe a few seconds to go there, do the stuff, and then back. And then it sends it back to the browser. So there are several factors that can make that slow, make that kind of old school approach slow, resulting in a bad user experience for the end user, which means that if you're especially running a shopping site, for example, people are not going to check out and buy your stuff if it's going to take longer than 2 seconds. So if the business logic is complex, if the return bundle is large, and if the request is being made far away from the physical server in a fixed location, for example, halfway around the world. So in contrast, when using a static site generator combined with a platform like Netlify, your HTML pages and documents and static assets are served as pre-built assets from the CDN, from the Content Delivery Network. So there's no build and bundling process. There's no going really far away to the other side of the world to get that file. It kind of happens a lot closer to you. So here is where it starts getting towards the edge. So a CDN is also known as an edge network. And this refers to the servers that sit on the edge of multiple networks, which act as bridges to route traffic between networks across the CDN. So when someone visits your pre-generated site on Netlify, they get back the pre-built pages straight away from the closest CDN server node location. There's no build to run. And as a result, people are getting a much faster experience being served these static assets from the edge network all around the world, regardless of where they are. So, serverless functions have historically been restricted to running on servers in specific locations, especially as we just saw just now from Sani. Choose South Africa, choose Paris, choose America, choose US West, that always goes down. US West. So for me, making a request from the UK and all of you to US West takes longer than if I was going to make a request to one of the European regions due to the physical distance the request has to travel. Has anyone seen that story on the internet about the 500-mile email? When there was like, literally, these people were pulling out their brains, like, why is that person not getting the email? And it turns out because it was just slightly too far away. It's a great story. And I urge you to listen, watch, read it. So, if you're using serverless functions in your product to power your calls to your database or anything like that, in order to make your website fast for everyone globally, you need high availability on servers around the world, coupled with a similar intelligent network to that CDN that knows how to route requests to the closest location to the user. And here's where serverless plus the CDN Jamstack makes edge functions. Edge functions are actually serverless functions at the edge. And they are powered by the edge network. They run at the closest location to the user when you want to run some back-endy code. And you might also hear this technology referred to as edge computing. And with this, you, as developers, can collectively make the web faster for everyone and more accessible to more people. And I think that's something that could change lives if people are now able to access more content quicker wherever they are in the world. You know, they might be the furthest away from US West possible. If you're using edge functions to serve that content, they're going to be able to have access to it. Another small little aside that I think with the wide adoption of edge functions and edge computing, we may also begin to see a reduction in carbon emissions. I'm hoping as a result of data being served quicker over a shorter distance. Who knows? It's probably a pipe dream, but we could save the world with edge functions. So in April this year, that wasn't meant to be a joke. I think I heard someone laugh. I'm actually trying to change the world. So in April this year, Netlify released edge functions. Now, they're in beta still, but you can actually add edge functions to any new or existing project on Netlify, and I'm going to show you how to do it. They're very much like serverless functions. You can write them using JavaScript or TypeScript, but instead of using Node.js, which we're very accustomed to with things like AWS Lambda, Netlify edge functions are actually using Dino, which is an open source runtime built on web standards. So if you are really familiar with web APIs and standard request and responses, there's actually nothing else you really need to learn if you're using Dino. So with Netlify edge functions, you can do things like transform HTTP requests and responses, stream server rendered content, and even run full server-side rendered applications at the edge. So what happens is when you use an edge function, it sits in the middle of the request and the response, and you can take stuff from the response and take stuff from the request and transform the response and do all sorts of fun stuff according to geolocation, headers, cookies, etc., all without like needing to do that on the client. And I think I'll show you why that's really cool in a minute. So what does an edge function look like? Here's a hello world example. It's just a little bit of code, really. It's just a bit like that chunk of code I showed you earlier, just a bit of JavaScript. And you can also use TypeScript. This is in JavaScript. It's nothing, hopefully, that you are unfamiliar with. So you might be thinking, well, Salma, that edge function code looks suspiciously similar to a serverless function. So why don't I just use serverless functions? I'm used to it. I know how to write Node. Can't bother to learn anything else. Why would I do it? So while Netlify functions are great for providing API endpoints and serving responses, the edge functions actually empower developers to do more. It's about modifying the network requests and responses, and essentially the biggest use case is to personalize the web for a greater range of people without having to do too much. It's a lot of the time personalization, you'd have to maintain loads and loads of files for different languages or currencies, but actually you can just intercept the request with edge functions and then modify the response that's sent on instead. So let's get edgy. I forgot I had that slide in. It's a little bit weird, isn't it? You can add edge function files to your project in 3 steps and get up and running. So first of all, just add a file to your project, then associate your functions with URLs, and then just deploy your project as usual to Netlify, and Netlify just takes care of it for you. It identifies that you've got an edge function and nothing else to do. So let's add an edge function file to a project. So you might have a project that looks a little bit like this. It's kind of a front-endy thing. There's your source file that Connell talked about as well. Got some Node modules, package.json, README, all that good stuff. And if you're already using Netlify functions, serverless functions in Node, you'll have a Netlify directory. And inside that, you'll have a functions directory. And edge functions live in an edge functions directory. Surprise, surprise, right next to functions. And so here's the edge function we wrote earlier. It just slots nicely in there. Don't need to worry. So that's a hello world edge function, simple as that. Next, we're going to associate the function with a URL. And for this, we're going to use a special file that we use on Netlify to configure your build. And it's really good for like version controlling configuration. So for example, here is an existing netlify.toml file that has a redirect rule in it. And it's redirecting from a short URL to a terrible URL that you don't ever want to tell anyone. So it's nice to have that version controlled rather than being configured on a server somewhere and requesting permission for that. Devs can just do it themselves. So what we do is we add an edge functions directory, edge functions entry to the file, and we specify the path we want it to run on and what function we want it to run inside the edge functions directory. And that's it. Deploy that to Netlify as usual. So you can do it in a number of ways. If you have integrated your Git version control flow thing with Netlify at the click of a button, you can just push your changes and Netlify will build it. Or you can do it manually if you're that kind of person, if you're like a little bit of a manual deploy party. Just deploy it like that with the build flag. And there it is, hello world. You see it's on /hello, that's all it is. So that's an edge function. Now it doesn't look like it's doing much, but it's actually running at the edge. And I think sometimes these examples can get a little bit like, okay, well, so what? I'm going to show you why it gets cool. So edge functions on Netlify in 3 steps. I did just show you something cool about the Netlify CLI. We were doing Netlify deploy, -- build, etc. Obviously, if we're going to be releasing these things for developers to make their lives easier with how they write code, we need a way for them to develop locally on the edge, right? So that's where the CLI comes in. We've built everything into that to enable you to test your edge functions locally, even with geolocation data. So it even gets you see it's running on a test server, but you even get geolocation data when you're just locally developing. So here's how you install Netlify CLI. It's an npm package. You've got to do it globally. And if you've already got an existing project on Netlify and you're not using the CLI yet, you can just run Netlify link. Or if it's a new project, you can just run Netlify init. And to spin up your local development server, to test edge functions on the fly, just run Netlify dev or Nettle dev, which is a built-in alias, which I love because it's easier to type. So let's have a look at some real-world examples as to why actually you might want to use edge functions actually. So let's go back to the hello world edge function. So this is a small function. It's just returning a new response, an HTTP response. And if you're familiar with the web standards on MDN, etc., it's the same thing. It's nothing new. It's the same thing. So you can work with a response object in usual ways. You can set the content type headers. I want to return text HTML. And edge functions receive 2 arguments, which you can make use of in your code. And the first one is the request object. Again, it's just the request, the HTTP request. You can do the same stuff with it as you're used to, such as setting the request headers and doing some stuff with that, whatever you might need to do. You can also parse the URL for parameters. And here is a real-world example. So, for example, say I want to personalize a web page for you here at Fusion. I might want to do a little question mark event equals Fusion. If you are, if you use that URL, you'll get a nice little hello Fusion. But if you don't use that parameter on the URL, you just get hello everyone else. Here we go. Here all we do is we parse the URL parameters. You read the code. I don't know. I forgot I did all this fancy magic move like Connell. And there you go. So a nice way. And obviously you can extend this to large pages, right? You can do whatever you need to based on anything that's on the request or any location data or anything that you want. And the second argument that edge functions take is the context object. And this is where there's loads of good stuff on here. These are all the things you can do on the context object. They've got like a lot of utility functions built in that you can work with cookies, geolocation data. You can even like get IPs, so you can like block IPs if you want, just with an edge function. Like as a front-end developer, I can block IPs. You can work with send things as JSON. You can there's a special log function that gives you a little bit more than console log. Context.next is the most exciting one. Because what context.next does is it actually grabs the response of the resulting HTTP request, so you can like get it, read it, do whatever you want with it, change it and send it back. You can rewrite to different URLs, and you can also get some internal information from your Netlify site. So we're going to look at using geolocation to modify a response depending on your location. So for example, here we go. We get context.geo. We can get our location data from there. And what we can even do is restrict anyone who wants to access the Fusion event to being in this country. And if they're not in this country, we can tell them to go away and send them a nice status 451. Because, Sani, I like sending correct status codes. And if you get anything from today, you'll know that 451 means not available for legal reasons. Little nugget of information there. So as a front-end developer, like this power has not been in my hands before. This stuff is like, I wouldn't have even dreamed of doing this stuff when I first started development because I was like more concerned with the front end. And the fact that I've been able to learn this stuff as a front-end developer, I've been able to do this stuff, have the power to do this stuff, I've been empowered. I keep saying things like this, but much like Connell's team wants to empower all the other developers to get their job done, edge functions have done that for me as well. So I want to show you one more example, a little bit of magic that's a little bit more real world. Let's say you have an online shop where you sell 2 categories of products: corgis, probably teddies, not real dogs, and pizzas. Or food, corgis and food, right? And I want to modify what someone sees based on what they're most interested in, to hopefully encourage them to buy more things that they like. So, say someone clicks on a food item and they go and see that food page, it navigates to a URL with food in. And with edge functions, we can pass that URL and set a cookie based on what product type they clicked. So here we go. Let's parse the request URL again, and let's have a look at the path. If it starts with food, we're going to set a cookie that says they prefer food. And if it starts with corgis, we'll set a cookie that says they prefer corgis. When the request is incoming, that will have, on the context object, we can get the prefers cookie. And if they prefer food, we can rewrite them to a different homepage where we just show food. If they prefer corgis, we can send them to the corgi homepage. And so look, if I click on food, and I really like food, next time I go back to the homepage, my experience is personalized for me based on the things I did before. Again, something that I never thought I'd be able to do as a front-end developer. Now, obviously, this is a really basic example. This demonstration idea is actually from one of my colleague, Jason Lengsdorf's repository, Node.js Personalization. He actually goes a little further, and he sets the cookies with like a weighting score based on how many times you click on food and how many times you click on corgis. But the concept is the same, and it actually shows the power you can have to personalize experiences just very slightly. Kind of a little bit how like ads are shown to you based on what you talk about near your phone. But this can all be done with edge functions. It's one of the things. So real life examples, I hope that like inspires you to think like, oh, maybe what can I do? And a lot of people, they say to me, oh, so Salma, I should put everything on the edge now, should I? And that's not what I'm saying. You can just use edge functions very carefully in a very select way to do some of this fun stuff that can just slightly like elevate your product a little bit more in terms of the experience for the user. So edge functions on Netlify, there is actually a huge site of examples that I built with my colleague Phil Hawksworth, where you can see all the different types of things you can do. There's code examples, there's a repo you can go and have a look at, and if you want, you can actually deploy this whole site to your own Netlify account at the click of a button if you want to go and investigate further. There's examples for things such as setting up an A/B test at the edge if you wanted, and you can go and have fun. But there is a little bit more. You can also, whilst you can use edge functions in any project, you can use them for vanilla projects or anything, but you can also use them with a number of different frameworks. And some of these frameworks, such as Astro and 11T and what's the other one that does it? Remix and Quick. These actually now offer full server-side rendering of applications at the edge using Netlify edge functions. So you're able to server-side render whole applications on Netlify at the edge, making it a lot faster for everyone. And it's another indication that like Jamstack has moved far away from static sites, and now it's more about the architecture and getting things to your users as quick as possible using the vast array of technology that we've got. So you can find some more information about how you can use Netlify Edge stuff with those frameworks on the docs. So let's recap. Serverless functions are bits of back-end code run on servers on a fixed location that you don't have to worry about managing. And an edge network is a group of connected servers that sit on the edge of multiple networks to route traffic between networks across a content delivery network or CDN. Combine serverless functions with an edge network, and you get serverless functions at the edge, or edge functions, and they give you the power to run code on demand at the closest location to a user anywhere in the world. And this is making the web faster, more accessible. I really hope that maybe we can save the world one day with edge functions, although it's probably not possible, but one can dream. You can use Netlify edge functions today in anything you want on Netlify. It's just 3 steps to get started and deploy. There's that example site I talked about. You can use a Netlify CLI. And everything is in the documentation. And I also had a first look at edge functions way back when they were released. And I wrote a blog about it, and I did a YouTube video about it from the stream. So if you want to catch up And look into it more. You can go and find me on the internet at White P4N3R. I help developers build stuff, learn things, love what you do. I hope I've helped you build stuff and learn things and love what you do today. You can get any more information at whitepanther.com. And thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
One, two, okay, and then we can both have handheld mics. So, thank you very much, Salma. Questions from the floor? Hands up. It's always someone at the back, isn't it?
Please don't ask me to tell a joke.
Yeah, I don't know if this is kind of a naive question, but the edge function, I can see how it makes the front end faster, but your data has to live somewhere. And if you don't spend $1 million on your Azure or AWS or whatever all over the world, then it's going to have to ping all over the globe one way or the other, right?
You make an excellent point. So as I said just now, like edge functions probably right now at least are not for everything. And if you've got like data stores in particular places, your edge function could be running like actually really far away from your data store, like you say. So I think we need to use edge functions carefully. These personalization examples don't contact a database right now, and perfectly good use case. But I think we've still got a little bit of way to go. I think some database providers in the cloud are now releasing edge databases, but there's still the problem, as Sani was telling us, of where your data has to live depending on what kind of industry you are working in. So maybe edge isn't suitable for that, and that's okay. It's just another tool you can use. But yeah, great point. Maybe not the best use case to contact huge data stores that have to live somewhere.
Cool. Anyone else? Connell.
The world's not going to implode if I ask a question, right? It's like breaking the fifth wall or something. Really appreciate your use of a magic move, by the way. Apologies if I missed this. Does it have to be in JavaScript? Because there are other language support for this.
TypeScript.
Good answer. Anything else?
So Dino is a JavaScript runtime at the moment, and so there's no other support right now. There are early support for like Node modules and Node kind of stuff in Dino, but it's very, very early, like not even really out yet. But at the moment, Netlify is going to stay JavaScript and TypeScript. It's going to like mirror the serverless functions route that we're going on. So I actually don't. I'm not really like in the other trendy language circles like Go. So I don't even know whether Go are like going to do edge functions and stuff. Who knows? But let's go Google that.
Okay, and I'm a PHP engineer, so I'll just cry. Anyone else?
I know that these edge functions typically have fairly constrained runtime contexts in terms of the amount of time that they can execute for, the amount of memory that you're allowed to allocate. And sometimes they can be fairly restrictive. What are the restrictions on Netlify's functions in terms of memory and time?
So I know the execution time is 50 milliseconds per edge function, which is less than the serverless functions, but they run faster because of the way they allocate memory and stop and start at different times. So it's 50 milliseconds in total, but it doesn't take up the whole time when it stops and starts. Somebody who built this could answer this much better than me, and I'm kind of just regurgitating an answer that someone else gave like this. But yes, there's another consideration, another constraint to take into consideration when you're thinking about edge functions versus serverless. They run out of execution time quicker compared to serverless. So it might be that it times out and you might need to move to a traditional serverless function. And that's okay as well, right?
Yes, I need to come forwards to come to my phone because there's one genuine question and there's one of someone on the Fusion team trolling you.
Okay, is that Mike?
Of course.
Yes. Hi, Mike. How you doing over there?
Can we just okay? Right. Okay. Okay. Thanks. Can corgis be food? Brilliant. Really useful. Can I run Tailwind on Jamstack?
So that's a troll question, because everyone knows how I feel about Tailwind, because I have tried to use Tailwind multiple times on my stream, but I just like to write CSS.
Okay.
But yes, you can.
That's one of the people on your Twitch stream.
Yes, you can use Tailwind on the Jamstack, of course. It's just JavaScript to CSS. That's a stupid question. Next.
I don't like Tailwind.
Good, me either.
And I shouldn't say that because I'm a Laravel developer. There's a final one from online. I'm sorry. What I didn't say about myself is that my dissertation was in stand-up comedy, right? And I don't normally tell people that because when they hear that, they think that I'm funny, and I'm not. So because you actually do stand-up comedy, unfortunately, the final question that's come in online is, can you tell me your best joke? Which is just so sort of lame, isn't it?
It's lame, and also, I used to do comedy with another person. So whenever I tried to tell the best joke, it only really worked with two people, but I can try. But this is being recorded.
You really don't have to.
I'm going to do it. I'll do it. You know, it's almost home time, isn't it? Right. It's not going to work, full disclaimer. So the joke starts off with me saying that, yeah, so times are hard and no one really looks after the marginalized people in society, you know, especially the old people. You know, no one really goes around to see their granny. Old people tend to get swept under the carpet, like when you accidentally drop the urn. That was my comedy, okay?
I'm going for that one. There was. I think the best part of that was half of the audience just went, oh.
Sorry, not sorry. You asked.
That's good. I mean, I would have just said Liz Truss or something, and that would be funny. But right, a big round of applause. Thank you very much to Salma Alam-Naylor.
Thank you.
And so the wheels of time happen, and the night has ended, and so it is just up to me to do the thank yous. So the usual thank yous go out, first of all, to the important people are the sponsors that enable us to do this. Thank you very much to the sponsors. That's Goldman Sachs and Vonage. Thank you, obviously, to our speakers. Our speakers have been absolutely fantastic tonight. Big round of applause to them all. And obviously to the food, the gyros are actually amazing. So big round of applause to Greek Street Food. I think some really big fans in the audience. And obviously the last part is thank you to you for coming. Give yourselves a round of applause. My special thanks go out in general to Hannah and Andy for running this, and I'm going to say James, but I'm not going to say Mike, because Mike just generally trolls me at the back, and he's just difficult to work with. So thanks to Hannah and Andy for setting this up and running Fusion. As per usual, as our sort of run tradition, we go to